Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar on how to use Osmosis. My name is Shiv, and I'm one of the co-founders of Osmosis, who, along with my friend and fellow Hopkins medical student, Ryan Haynes, started this company to develop something that we believe is the future of medical education, the tool that most people should start using to improve the way they learn and retain information. Now, Ryan and I met as anatomy lab partners during the first week, actually, of medical school. And we soon realized that there was no way we would be able to keep up with all the information that was coming our way. Many of you who are in med school already have heard the analogy that med school is like drinking water from a fire hose. And we realized that we had to do something for ourselves to make the situation better. Ryan has a PhD in neuroscience, and both of us have backgrounds in neuroscience and computer science. So we decided to start working together on a side project that we launched at Hopkins called Osmosis. And that was all it was intended to be, just a side project at first. But we started hearing from students at other schools who wanted to use it. And that's why we took time off of med school to continue working on it. Now, in short, Osmosis solves two problems for medical students. The first is, what should you be focusing on? Because most medical students can relate to the fact that you have things that you need to know for class exams, right? Things that your professors give you on weekly tests or monthly tests. Then you have things you have to know for the board exams, which ultimately, play a big role in deciding where you go to residency. Then there's things you have to know to actually be a good physician, right? Good patient care. And unfortunately, not all three of those different curricula overlap as much as they should. So it leads medical students to get confused about what should we be focusing on. The second problem that we solve is once you know what you should focus on, how do you learn it as quickly as possible and then retain it as long as possible? And so those are the two problems that Ryan and I set up to solve with Osmosis. Again, what should you be focusing on? And then once you know what to focus on, how do you remember it? And so the purpose of this webinar is to show you how Osmosis solves both these problems and how you can use it, whether you're a first-year medical student or a fourth-year medical student, to really manage med school for you. So I'm actually going to go into screen share mode, and you'll be able to see what I'm seeing on my screen. There it is. So this is the first page you see when you log into Osmosis. And you can see you're given the option to select your class group or a QBank. Just ignore some of this other stuff for now. But here's the class groups, and I'm a member of two. This is the Hopkins Med 15 class. Our classmates, Ryan and my classmates, that just graduated this past May. And then this is a demo group, which I'll go into to show you. But first, I'll show you the QBanks, because I want to start with the easiest to understand features. Osmosis has a huge question bank that's growing. We have 15,000 USMLE Step 1 flashcards and 2,500 questions, but next month we're publishing another 5,000 and another 2,500 Step 2 questions from publishing partners. And you can see the different components, including an American College of Physicians pack of questions. This is a Step 2 question bank. This is another Step 1 question bank. And so at its essence, you could just use Osmosis simply as a question bank, though it's a lot more powerful than that. But let me go into a question bank and show you what you can do. So to get started, you could just dive into questions right away, but we recommend going to this tab on the bottom left called Personalized Scheduling. And so here, if you click on Overview, this is where you can actually fill out some details, like when you start med school and when you expect to graduate. So I'm going to pretend that I'm entering med school this year as a class of 2019 student. So 2015 is when I enter, and I'm going to graduate in 2019. Osmosis will create basically a plan for you here. And I could say maybe, what if you're in a 3-year medical program? Then you can say 2015 to 2018, and Osmosis will take away year 4. Or maybe you're doing a 5-year MD MPH, and then you can have 5 years set here. Oh, sorry, I went back to 2019 to 2020, 5-year MD MPH. You have the 5th year right here. Or what if you're doing an MD PhD? Hopefully you'll graduate within 9 years, so 2015 to 2024. And the majority of this time is in your PhD years. Now, this is all well and nice, but why do you actually take the time to set a schedule? Why should you do that? It's because Osmosis isn't just giving you a visual representation of your schedule. it's allowing you to, it takes this data that you put in and then dynamically changes what it sends you via the web platform and the mobile app to be more relevant based on what you're learning. So what I mean by that is if we know that you have a microbiology exam coming up next week, we'll send you more microbiology questions via push notification leading up to your exam, and then via spaced repetition after your exam. So it's a lot more intelligent. We're trying to get to the whole concept of learning by osmosis, where knowledge is diffusing into your brain and it's coming to you. So let me go back to a typical four-year med school schedule, 2015 to 2019. The next thing you can do is kind of lay out your preclinical coursework. So you may be starting preclinical classes. A lot of students are starting, say, August 3rd or August 10th. I'll say August 10th here. And then they end maybe a year and a half or 2 years later. So in this case, I'm going to say the preclinical coursework ends March 31st, 2017. And then you can also set your exams and upload a calendar. But I'll skip this for now because these are actually based on your group features. And I'll dive into groups in a bit. So even if you're done with your preclinical schedule, what you can do is you can then set like a step 1 study schedule. So in the example I provided, say your preclinicals are over March 31st, 2017, maybe the next day, or hopefully let's just say April 3rd, you have a weekend to yourself, is when you start studying full-time for step 1. And then you take step 1 maybe 6 weeks later. So let's just say May 18th or so. And then it says, would you like Osmosis to generate a study schedule? And we can do that. And this is what it looks like. So basically what this is it gives you topics and starts sending you push notifications with questions and flashcards related to these topics on these different days. And you can dynamically change it. Say, for example, you only want to do anatomy later. Like let's say you want to start anatomy on April 11th, 2017. So you can do that right there. And obviously, if you're a first-year medical student, you aren't thinking about step 1 as much right now. But if you're about to take step 1 in your second year or your third year, you can do this right now. And Osmosis will start sending you relevant questions depending on what you want to study. Then you can go, it gets even sweeter, right? You can go to clinical rotations. So even after you're done with step 1, or if you're at a school that does it before, you can start laying out when you're starting different rotations. So say I'm starting my medicine rotation right after step. So let's just say I started Monday, May 29, 2017. And say it's an 8-week schedule. So I end on July 28th. And let's just say, I've completed my surgery rotation somehow. Let's go on and keep doing, I'll add 1 or 2 more. So pediatrics, we'll say we start September 1st and we end it on October 31st. Great. And so you can do this for all your rotations. And when we go back to overview, what you see here is the schedule starts getting populated. So these are preclinical coursework during your first year and a half or so. Then we say you have step 1 studying here, and that's when again Osmosis will start sending you step 1 relevant questions during this time, or we can send it to you beforehand, and you can set that yourself too. And then we start medicine here, and so Osmosis will start sending you medicine-related questions in preparation for the shelf exam, and then pediatrics is here, and so on and so forth. You can add more and more things here. So not just your core clerkships, but you can do electives, you can do sub-Is, you can do step 2 content. And I mentioned that 5,000 new Osmosis questions are coming out in August. That includes, neuro, emed, radiology, OB-GYN, psychiatry, peds, pretty much all the major rotations that you need, we have questions for. So we've tried to be as comprehensive as possible. So again, you can go ahead and the first thing you can do is set kind of a personalized schedule, and as much as you can. If you've already done 2 years of med school, now you're in the third year, you don't have to set that much of your preclinicals, just focus on the rotations. Or if you're a first year and you have no idea when you're going to be studying for STEP or doing wards, just focus on your first year, your preclinicals. So now that Osmosis knows what you're learning and can change what it sends you based on that, you can actually go to study preferences. And under study preferences is where you can determine how many new flashcards you want each day, how many questions you want each day, whether you want these sent to you via push notification. Do you want 1 push a day or more? do you want questions first or not? And then do you want reminder emails? And you can edit this dynamically and change it yourself. That being said, Osmosis does have an algorithm that is improved, an improvement upon something called Super Memo, which is what Anki uses. And so Osmosis has a better algorithm than Anki does, and a few other platforms. And so we actually recently got a grant from the National Board of Medical Examiners called the Stemler Grant, and we're working with 2 schools, University of Illinois Chicago and University of Central Florida, to further improve upon this algorithm that is pretty unique, because people are using the same spaced repetition algorithms that have been around for decades. It's time for, and this algorithm was actually developed to learn things like Swahili. And learning Swahili is very different than learning medicine. There, it's more important that you just know basic, vocabulary and things like that. Here, it's more important that you get the concepts, and Osmosis really helps you with that. So I'll transition over there. So let me go back to the main screen and actually show you some of the questions we have. So I'm going to stick to QBanks again. And we have 150 ECG questions for when you want to enter the wards. We have a step pack, which is increasing in size. As I mentioned, the American College of Physicians has the gold standard in questions for your medicine clerkship. You can access those on Osmosis. And my favorite pack is something we call Osmosing with the Stars. And it's based off of notable figures. So let me actually click in here. And I can select questions or flashcards. Here I'll select a topic that I'm interested in. So say I want to review the hem-onc questions. There's many different, Osmosis gives you as much control as you'd like, but let's just go and say I want to do all questions, and you can use advanced filters, but for this case, I won't use them. And here is what Osmosis will show you. So this is our logo, but it's also a functional scoreboard. So you can pick segments based on what you want to do. So based on accuracy, confidence, and time. So the outer ring represents your accuracy and confidence. So I do a lot of demos here, so please don't judge the fact that most of these are red. Red means you got the questions wrong. I'm typically just clicking between questions, so I'm not really thinking about them. But so here is one question I got correct with medium confidence, but I got 2 questions incorrect with high confidence. These are actually the worst because this is a misconception I had. Then I got 4 questions incorrect with medium confidence and 1 question incorrect with low confidence. So if I just want to do the questions I got incorrect, I can select the red areas. And then the inner circle is how long ago you did it. So you can see I had 3 that I answered 2 weeks ago, 2 answered 2 months ago, and 2 answered more than 2 months ago. The ideal scoreboard will look bright green on the outside, meaning 100% accurate with high confidence, and then blue on the inside, meaning you've done it recently. So I'll start the quiz. Here is a case-based vignette. So Osmosis has tons of flashcards, but we also have clinical questions, right, that are based off of the item writing guide that the National Board of Medical Examiners wrote. So many of these questions are 2-step, which is exactly the type of question you'll see on USMLE. And so here's a case of a man who has fatigue and chills, and I'm just going to go down here, and as I mentioned, just going to guess. So A, B, C, or D. And one thing that's very unique to Osmosis is we ask you your confidence beforehand. This is important because when you ask confidence after, if you got a question wrong, you may discount the fact you may not be able to accurately report on how confident you were. So it's important to ask it up front before you know if you got it right or wrong. And so I'm just going to say feeling lucky, and I happen to get it right here. Many of the Osmosis questions actually have sub-explanations. So if you want to dive in about why mono is wrong, you can click here. Bartonella is wrong, tuberculosis. Then we have a main explanation. And the unique thing, the reason this is called Osmosing with the Stars, is that this 40-year-old man is actually a celebrity. It's Michael Hall, who's Dexter. If any of you are like Dexter, you may not know that he was diagnosed and treated for Hodgkin's lymphoma. And he actually has a video here that Osmosis includes to make it more memorable, showing him talking about Hodgkin's lymphoma. So, if you like Dexter, you can take 7 minutes to just watch his interview, and you learn a lot about somebody you've spent a lot of time Netflixing. But you'll also benefit from anchoring, Hodgkin's lymphoma and Reed-Sternberg cells and other things in the context of somebody a lot about. This is actually a really well-known technique, and the Almost Doctors channel wrote about us and how osmosis does this in an article called "The Memory Trick Every Med Student Should Know," and it's essentially about anchoring important information with memorable info. So you can see osmosis is featured for this. And so another pretty unique thing that osmosis does is, say you want to do a deep dive into, say, Reed-Sternberg cells. We have an algorithm that automatically extracts the most relevant text. And so here Reed-Sternberg cells is highlighted. If I click on it, we pull up the Wikipedia for Reed-Sternberg cells. So you don't have to go form a new tab and start Googling Reed-Sternberg. It's right in here for you. And then we also pull up USMLE flashcards. So this is based off of the Brosencephalon deck, which many of you may have heard of. It's a popular Anki deck. And you can just mouse over, you can quiz yourself on these facts. You can mouse over to review, and then you can say, I want to remember this. When you say that, it goes into your review feed. So this is a manual way to increase the number of reviews that you have to do, and you can add all 4 facts to the review feed. We also have, these are first aid page numbers. So a lot of other platforms use crowdsourcing to determine what page something is on first aid. Osmosis has another algorithm that does that. So we've got the first aid index. This is 2014, but we have a 2015 one as well that's going to come out soon. And we can dynamically say what page Reed-Sternberg cells is on. So it's page 392 and 621. But for Hodgkin lymphoma, it shows up in page 391. And if we wanted to look up Hodgkin lymphoma, you can click here, and now we have the Wikipedia for Hodgkin's. We have memory anchors. I'll come back to this in a second. We have topic in depth. So this is from Medscape, which is one of our partners. There's 31 Hodgkin lymphoma facts you should know for the USMLE, at least 31. And then here you can see all the places Hodgkin lymphoma shows up. So Epstein-Barr virus, obviously lymphomas, Reed-Sternberg cells. And you can really do a deep dive. If you get really interested in Helicobacter, you can click there and you can start going through Helicobacter. I mean, one med student at University of California, Irvine, or Davis, described it in a really interesting way to me yesterday. She said it's like getting lost in a medical Wikipedia, but everything you need is there. So I'm just going to go out of that, and you can do the same thing for Bartonella Henselae. Click on that, and now you've got the high yield studying browser. So on the right, though, we also have recommended content. So here you can see, because the question had dealt with tuberculosis, it dealt with cat scratch, dealt with Epstein-Barr, you can click on any of these, and it goes to the Picmonic memory anchor. So it takes you right into Picmonic and loads the card for you. And then you can go study Epstein-Barr virus right there. And that's really useful because, say you got the question wrong and you really just want to do a deep dive or review, you can go right to the recommended content. We also have celebrity stuff. So there's a actress from 24, Alberta Watson, who unfortunately died because of lymphoma. You can click on that, and you can read about this actress who maybe you were a fan of 24 and you recognize her. You can read about kind of her struggle with it, and then you go through. And this is from a great resource called Celebrity Diagnosis. And again, it's all about anchoring important facts with things you know about. So it turns a guilty pleasure like watching 24 or Dexter into something more kind of something that you won't feel as guilty about. And then you rate the question and move on. So I'll say good here. And you can keep doing the same thing. So here, I can say, sure. And this is David Letterman having Tom Brokaw, who discusses multiple myeloma, because Brokaw was diagnosed with that. And you can see here, Jaws actor Roy Schneider had multiple myeloma. Anyways, it's whenever I go in here, I can get lost because it's so to me it's so interesting, and I think it's one of the things people love most about osmosis is how many important and useful memory anchors are attached to these, including, again, you can have a good time watching David Letterman for a minute and a half to remember multiple myeloma. So I'll go out of that, and that's just again a fraction of osmosis. We have the QBank that sends you questions based on your schedule, as you saw, and these questions are pretty unique in that they have memory anchors. So back on this main page, on the bottom left we have some news and announcements. Currently, we're actually running a deal with Medscape where if you click on this, you can learn more. We have a referral competition going on. So they're sponsoring some med students to use Osmosis for free. So if you want to get a free subscription to Osmosis, you can actually just go to osmosis.org/Medscape and get your referral link and start sending that out, and you'll get a free Osmosis. So I'll go back here. So let me enter the demo group. So this is like a class group, and actually where I think the most powerful features of Osmosis are. It obviously, there's a lot here, but if you spend 15 to 20 minutes with Osmosis, like I think most people tend to get it after just playing around with it a bit. I think the one way to look at it too is think about what you would ideally have in a education platform, and that's kind of what we decided to go for. So here we have your calendar. So this is your class calendar that you can actually upload your own class events and documents to. This is a private group. So this is a demo group right here, but if you were, say, at Tulane and you were in the Tulane class of 2019, you'd have a private Tulane 2019 group, just like a shared Dropbox folder. So nobody else has access to it. It's just for you and your classmates, like your Facebook group or really any group. And you can see who's in the group by just clicking group modules and members, and there's an invite link there as well. So this is your calendar, and you can see that there's events. So on Tuesday, July 7th, we had an event at 8 a.m. This is a test event. Let me just go through the process of creating an event. So we have to activate the group for you, and we do that by using an ICS file or manually putting in some events. I'm just going to show you how to manually put an event in. So I can just click and drag. Say it's Monday, 7:13, and I have a lecture from 9 to 11 a.m. And I'm just going to make this example Lyme lecture. And I'm going to say Gregory House is teaching me. Gregory House MD. Okay. Save edits and say done. And now, boom, we have a slot here where you can, it's 9 a.m. on the 13th, and you can click browse or drag and drop a document here. So I'm just going to drag and drop one of the documents here, and it's starting to load. It loads really quickly, generally, I mean, depending on the size of the document. And while this is loading, if I had more events on other days or the same day, I could start uploading those as well. The reason to upload documents is because this is where Osmosis gets really powerful. Osmosis will analyze the text of the document and then recommend memory anchors, flashcards, videos, questions, and many other things that'll help you go through that lecture in a more efficient way. Again, the two problems we solve are, one, what should you focus on, and two, how do you remember what you need to learn? And so in this case, we know that you have a professor's slides on, say, Lyme disease, but the professor may or may not be teaching towards the USMLE, which is fine. Maybe they're teaching more important things like the clinical correlates of the Lyme disease or whatnot, but you still have to take the boards. So we might as well take what your professor's teaching you and then append to it USMLE relevant flashcards and questions. And so if I click into the document, it opens a new tab, and here you can actually see the document. So again, this was a sample, and we uploaded this so that you can see how things work. But so here's just a one-pager with some text on Lyme disease. What Osmosis has done is it's recommended fact checkpoints. So these are just like the USMLE relevant flashcards you saw before. Here are fact checkpoints. So here you can see, what is the treatment for Lyme disease? So as you're going through it, you can stop and say, okay, did I really remember this? Or maybe you haven't learned this yet, but it's related to the topic. And you mouse over and you see it's doxycycline or ceftriaxone. And then you can say, if it's not relevant, just say not currently relevant. But if it is, I want to remember this. And then it's scheduled again in your review feed. And then what generation cephalosporin is cefuroxime? Mouse over, second generation. I want to remember that. And then you go down here, and you can see we've recommended Picmonics again, as well as a famous celebrity singer who has Lyme disease. So similarly, memory anchors for what you're learning in your course documents. And then we also extracted all the text from your documents that was relevant. And say you want to do a deep dive in doxycycline. You can click on that, and then you're back in the high-yield studying browser, where you have 10 facts about doxycycline that you can go through. Right, and then the high-yield reading, as we showed you before, and then I really like this too, the topic in depth. So Medscape, again, the sooner you can start getting in the habit of using clinically relevant reference solutions, like Medscape being one of the best, you can click on that and you can start reading about doxycycline. So here's the mechanism of action from Medscape. Very powerful. So this is stuff that Osmosis brings to you based on your documents. So simply creating events and uploading documents will get you all of this stuff. You can also take your own private notes. So here I can start taking notes. I can attach images and videos. So it's a really great way to not only take the things that are most high yield and recommended, but also to write your own notes as you're going through lectures. If the professor says, this is a really important topic for my test or for the boards, you can just simply go here and create a flashcard. And so I'll just create a test flashcard right here, or treatment for Lyme. And I'll say in the back, doxycycline is one of them. And you can attach images and videos. You can add references like PubMed articles or books. There's tons of stuff you can do if you just play around with it a bit. And then you can save the question. And then you can keep it private, or you can publish it to the group. And in this way, you can crowdsource the development of relevant questions and flashcards. So questions, similarly, I can create a multiple choice question or label matching, true, false, fill-in factoid, many different types. You can tag them. You can randomize the answer choices. You can have sub-explanations. It's really a great tool to crowdsource. And some school groups, like Queen's Med, for example, Western University, they've used it incredibly well to crowdsource. And this is how we got started at Hopkins too. So it's published, and one way to coordinate this too is for every document on the top, you can actually sign up with your friends, and you can say, I'm going to sign up to write questions for this lecture. And together you can crowdsource the writing of questions or flashcards for your lectures. So it's really like Anki on steroids. I mean, there's no real comparison in terms of the capabilities that you can do on Osmosis. So I'm going back to the group dashboard. And here, now this is where it gets super interesting too. The stuff on the left is best thought of like an inbox. So when you go into Gmail or Outlook and you check your email, you have these, you have a certain number of notifications on the left saying, this is, you have 15 unread messages, for example. So Osmosis breaks this down into things that are like flashcards, which are best for retention, and then questions for mastery, right? It's important to do both, because if you're just doing flashcards your first year and a half, like fine, you're developing a lot of facts, but you aren't necessarily making higher order conceptual connections that are most important for things like the boards, and more importantly for good patient care. But then if you just try diving into questions right away, it may be too much and you need to develop the facts. So Osmosis will actually give you this inbox style look, and you can see that I have one flashcard to do that was written by my classmates or me. And this was the card I just wrote. So I can start treatment for Lyme, I can rate my confidence, it's doxy, I got it, right? And then what Osmosis will do is it actually says, this is added by Shiv. I can comment on the question. I can say, if I want to add some more info or a mnemonic, or if your friend writes a question that's incorrect, you can call them on it, and that's fine, because you guys can, let me just do that example. It may not be correct. And then, people can up or down vote. You can follow up, you can retract. There's a lot of things you can do if you just play around with it. Osmosis will also, again, it does the highlighting thing, so you can just click on Doxy and then go back into this. Lecture slide. So this is pretty unique in that every flashcard or question that's written on a lecture will actually have the exact lecture slide brought back. So I can click on the lecture slide, and now I'm back in the lecture. So I can do a quick review, and then I can rate it to good. Say good. I've done one of one questions that my classmates wrote, and I'm done. Now I'm going to do the 5 questions. These are 5 flashcards that Osmosis has. We have a patent pending algorithm that read your document and said these are 5 flashcards relevant to the boards that you should go through, and then you can go through them. Here again, the recommendations. Got it. And so again, like this talks about asthma, so we bring in some asthma stuff right here. And so these are, and now you can see it's ticking down. I started at 5 and now I have 2. So it's kind of like my daily thing to do. And then there's things to repeat. So even though I'm learning about Lyme disease right now, in the past I learned about hemonc, I learned about repro, I learned about anatomy. So there's 105 things in my queue to do. Obviously yours shouldn't get that high, because hopefully you'll keep up with it more often. But you can go through and start answering the stuff for spaced repetition, and everything that that you'd want in the spaced repetition system is here on Osmosis and more, because we have an app that actually sends you push notifications. And then there's also questions that were written by you and your classmates, as well as questions that are from Osmosis's packs. Let me actually just dive into another group and just show you it in real life, and then I'll end in a few minutes. So there's a class of 2019 group at Western that's pretty active right now because they're doing summer classes. So I'll go into their group, and you can see they have an anatomy. These last 2 weeks they've been going through some anatomy. You can see they have a bunch of documents that they've uploaded. All these blue squares are documents they've uploaded. And you can see, so it was Monday, June 29th, they had a summer anatomy course, chest wall and diaphragm. Or on Wednesday the 8th, they had lymph and autonomics. And so you can see too that when I click through, so say it's the 29th, I click on the 29th, notice that these numbers change. So this goes, I have 58 flashcards by my classmates and me, 100 flashcards from Osmosis. Then we go to the 7th. Now it's 24 and 81. Let me highlight all of them. 214, 614. This is because Osmosis dynamically will tell you what has to be done in each day. So obviously, because I'm not in this class, I haven't been answering anything, but you can see what's new, what you have to do, just like your inbox. And so if I'm starting on the 29th, I can just go through and start answering flashcards written by my classmates. And you can see the lecture slide that this is based off on, and keep going through it. And then I can go to things that Osmosis has recommended. So based on these 3 documents on the 29th, Osmosis found 100 flashcards in its 15,000 USMLE bank that it's recommending. And so you can keep going through it. So got it. And then here's where I'll take a quick pause, because I just answered a question on berry aneurysms, which are commonly located in the Circle of Willis and a few other places. And so, we have the Picmonic on the Circle of Willis. We have David Mills, who unfortunately, he was a writer for The Wire. He died maybe due to a berry aneurysm, which we can learn about. And then this is something very unique to Osmosis too. We have a 3D anatomy flashcard on the cranial arteries. So if I click here, we have a flash, this is a normal flashcard, right, or diagram of the Circle of Willis. Osmosis has actually developed its own bank of 3D flashcards. So here, to orient yourself, anterior skull, and I can move back here and show you, zoom in. This is the Circle of Willis. I can pause and I can start hovering over these numbers to quiz myself. And the nice thing here is that, I'm answering these, after doing the first few weeks of anatomy, you may never go back to anatomy until like your surgery clerkship or step prep. With Osmosis, because we have the recommendations, these things may come back to you just randomly, right? If you're in the neuro block 6 months after anatomy, it may talk about stroke or berry aneurysms, and then boom, you get the Circle of Willis diagram again. You spend 2 minutes reviewing it, and you're good for another 6 months, right? And so it's a really powerful way to keep on top of things you've learned in the past. And then again, questions written by my classmates or me, and then Osmosis questions. What Messages does is it shows you that it's like a newsfeed in a way. So you can see somebody created a flashcard. Somebody said, this may not be correct. I think it should say abdominal wall. This was recent. Same thing, somebody created a flashcard and then somebody asked a question. Our impression and groove the same thing. And if I want to be helpful, I can vote it. I can comment on it. I can look at the slide and review the material. So it's a really just a very powerful way to not only crowdsource material, but to go through it together. That's a lot of stuff, I know. Osmosis is a pretty complicated system, but in a good way, because once you spend 15, 20 minutes to get a hold of it and you upload documents and activate your group, it becomes a super powerful tool. And again, it does a great job of solving 2 fundamental problems that all med students, and really all students, have. One, what should you be focusing on? This is what you should be focusing on, right? Here are your documents. Here are USMLE relevant flashcards. Here are USMLE relevant questions that are recommended to you based on documents. And then here are things that your classmates have written or you have written based on what you're actually learning in class. So now you've got a daily schedule to essentially go through and make sure that you're checking those boxes just like you do for your email. The second problem, how do you retain what you've learned, what you've just learned? I mean, that's the purpose of the scheduling and the app. So we have the repetition, spaced repetition right here, but if you definitely need to download the Osmosis app, which will send you practice questions and flashcards via push notification at the schedule that you set. So those are the two problems that we solve, and I think in the interest of time, I'll close it off very soon. Basically, as far as next steps, what I recommend for everyone to do who's watching or will watch this is go to, again, QBanks and set your schedule, right? This is really helpful for you because then you get kind of a dynamic recommendation engine that'll send you things based on what you're learning. And then the second thing to do is to actually join a class group if you haven't already, and then activate the group. And the way you activate that is if you go into a group that isn't activated, you can just click request to activate, or you send an email to hi@osmosis.org with your class calendar, or just any email, and we'll help get you set up so that you can enjoy all the powerful features that you just saw here related to how Osmosis bridges the gap between what you're learning in class, what you need for the boards, and then how are you going to succeed in the wards. So I hope that was helpful. I hope you're able to kind of benefit from Osmosis in this way. I mean, really, I think one journalist who wrote an article about us earlier this year put it best. I mean, Osmosis, we designed it so that it basically manages med school for you. We wanted to make the most powerful system for learning and retaining medicine to make the best doctors from a clinical knowledge perspective. And we hope you really enjoyed. And if you have any questions, feel free to email us. Or now we just installed this sleek chat feature, so you can just chat us right away from within Osmosis. So thank you for your kind attention. It's really great to connect with med students who are interested in improving how they learn. And so, at any point, if you want to reach me, just email shiv@osmosis.org or hi@osmosis.org. But again, good luck with the start of med school for those of you starting, or good luck finishing for those of you who are already in it. So thanks a lot.